Marty started! Coming to the ring first, the challenger from Hammersmith, St. George Froch!
And so as the lights go down, so the excitement levels go up as we await the appearance of George Groves, the challenger. A night like nobody here has ever witnessed before. Another great fight night at Wembley. There have been precious few of them across the last 50 years and more. Henry Cooper against Cassius Clay, later Muhammad Ali. Frank Bruno losing in a world heavyweight title fight against Tim Witherspoon, and then succeeding at the fourth time of asking against Oliver McCall in 1995. This is the first fight night in this magnificent arena since then. As Adam Booth was posing the question, how will the two men respond? When their images appeared on the screens here at either end of the stadium when they arrived here a couple of hours ago, there was a mixed reception for each of the boxers. And that is the sense we're getting now as we await our first sighting of George Groves in this, his second world title fight. First time round, went so close to pulling it off against Carl Froch. The ring walk is longer than he ever will have experienced in his 20-fight career. He's attempting to become world champion in fewer fights than many British boxing legends, Joe Calzaghe and Ricky Hatton and Nigel Benn and Barry McGuigan and many others. And now, through one of the gangways, comes a double-decker bus, shiny red beneath the spotlights, with George Groves on the top deck, leaning over the front of it. And he expects to have the upper hand all evening here against Carl Froch. He looks around him and soaks up the atmosphere. A crowd 4 times as big as anything he's witnessed in his career so far. And he turns around 180 degrees, walks towards the back of that top deck of the bus here. He said it would be a very special entrance. He's claiming to be the underdog here. Certainly in betting terms he is. But so many people, so many more people this time round for sure, fancy his chances. And there's a smile on his face now. It's a nervous smile as he stands right now in front of the bus, having made his way down from that top deck onto a red carpet through towards the arena floor. And there is a chorus of mainly boos here. He smiles though and grits his teeth as he makes his way through the long, wide gangway here across the boards above the hallowed turf of Wembley Stadium. And now his crowd respond as some fireworks and some flash fires go off at either end of the stadium here, marking his route towards ringside. And he appears on the stage at the far end of the arena as we look on, and he just limbers up, loosens up, motions to start shadow boxing, really trying to take all this in, to savor the occasion and to keep his mind together, to keep his composure, to keep the nerves in check.
Keeping the nerves in check is one thing, Mike, but managing this final bit from that stage, that platform. He's been on a platform before, he's had fireworks before, he's never had to make that walk through the final 10,000 of 80,000, get in that ring and then look out. Gaze upon the lights in here. It looks like everybody's got their cameras out at the same time. It looks like he's walking into a galaxy.
And suddenly he steps down from the stage and now marches towards the ring. And there's an expression on his face that is so different to last time round. Last time he was so relaxed, almost smiling. Here he's got a face of fury as he comes close to the ringside steps now. He enters in the neutral corner, diagonally opposite our commentary position here, taps the hand of Michael Buffer and walks around the perimeter of the ring, holding his left arm aloft with a blue glove, wearing blue gloves as he was last time around, predominantly blue shorts, this huge Chelsea fan here for the rematch that has been so eagerly awaited. And now he flops the hood up onto his head, and he'll have now nervous moments to wait for the arrival of Carl Froch. Richie Woodall, George Groves here, marching towards the ring in very different style to last time round.
He looks a very confident man indeed. He did the odd smile to some people just walking through. His eyes were firmly fixed. He wasn't looking around everywhere. He looks determined, yeah. He looks very, very confident. And Mike, I have to say, that ring walk there with the double-decker bus and all the flames, it just brought back memories of the opening ceremony of the Olympic Games. It was incredible, with all the lights off and just people are just shining torches. I've never seen anything like it. Brilliant.
This is a wonderful showcase for British boxing, a wonderful showcase also for British sport. And the reaction you're listening to now is to the images of Carl Froch appearing on the screens at either end of this Wembley Stadium. And very soon Froch will be introduced and he will make his entrance into this cauldron of noise, this cauldron of hostility, as George Groves limbers up in the ring above us and the lights go down once again, all apart from one single spotlight.
And now, making his entrance to the ring, the defending world champion from Nottingham, Carl the Cobra Froch!
And just as we're expecting the battle in the ring to be so closely contested as it was last time round, it seems like it'll be a very evenly contested showdown between the respective groups of fans as well. Froch fans all around the stadium, Groves fans all around the stadium, trying to make themselves heard here. 80,000 seats have been sold, no need for the seats, everybody on their feet here for this special night of British boxing.
Yeah, 80,000 people have bought a little lump of concrete for them to stand on to witness history here in North London. And I think, and I'm surprised by this, I thought Froch's reception was slightly warmer and kinder, just marginally, than Groves's. I thought it was about a 60-40 to steal a line from Amir Khan earlier.
And George Groves can't resist the temptation to look up at one of those screens and to see the progress of Carl Froch here now, as he comes in to the strains of We Will Rock You. He was telling me yesterday at the weigh-in that he's chosen a Freddie Mercury and Queen number because he remembers as an 8-year-old watching Live Aid in this stadium in 1985, and he said when the concert seemed to be just faltering, Freddie Mercury came on stage and brought the stadium alive, and that's what he plans to do here this evening. No ceremony for Carl Froch, almost Mike Tyson style. He just makes a straight walk to the ring, and like Tyson, he's dressed predominantly in black, in a black t-shirt with black gloves, the t-shirt above those predominantly black shorts, as he heads now towards that same stage. There's just again a single spotlight on the man of the moment for this moment, and it's Carl Froch up onto the ramp, onto the stage. It's directly in front of us, way down at the far end of this stadium, and we get a sense once again of just how huge this arena is and how small the ring right in front of us looks here. And so the crowd have a chance to savour Carl Froch in his 12th world title fight. He raises both of his arms to take the acclaim from those here who've come to see him win. So many different opinions about the way this fight might rumble, and in the end, which way it will fall. So many arguments about that first contest 6 months ago, and the controversy has fueled this rematch. And so Froch, beneath the glimmer of that spotlight, and again the flames going off all around him, starts to shadow box, to just loosen up for one last time. All the hard work has been done in the build-up. Now for the hard work when it matters most of all.
It's sensible that he was shadow boxing there, Mike, because we saw him shadow boxing about 12, 15, 16 minutes ago. So it's interesting he came there and shadow boxed rather than just smiling. And he threw something there he failed to throw in the first fight. He threw a jab. Could that jab, could the boxing's most old-fashioned punch and most effective punch be a decider tonight in front of 80,000?
And Mike, the advantage, of course, of being the defending champion He's coming into the ring second. George Groves must have been standing in that ring now a good probably 8, 9, 10 minutes, nervous. And the start of this contest is going to be absolutely crucial. I'd sooner be Froch coming in second rather than up there waiting what George Groves is doing.
Everybody holding aloft their phones and their tablets to get their precious memory of what is such a special night in British sport. And now Carl Froch slips between the centre 2 ropes of the 4 that make up this centre of confrontation here, where the action is about to unfold. And Froch again does look nervous. Why wouldn't he? So much at stake here. If he loses tonight, it might be the end of his boxing career. George Groves is trying to fix his gaze on Froch. He wants Froch to look across. He wants to stare down. But Froch has just turned his back here. Robert McCracken almost caught the gaze of George Groves. He too turns away. The trainer throughout the professional career of Carl Froch, who's over in the blue corner on the far side of the ring as we look on. Closer to us, just to our right, the red corner, housing the corner men of George Groves. Groves himself is still walking up and down along this rope just in front of us, left to right, right to left. Both men are looking so tense here, and why not? This means so much to both of them. They've looked so controlled, so composed, so confident in the build-up, but now the reckoning has arrived, and it's arrived in the expressions on their faces.
I think, Mike, as well, looking at George Groves, he still looks very confident. The way he's walking up and down there pacing, he's like a tiger on the prowl, just looking across. Groves has opted to go into his corner to stay away from that. So, yeah, it's incredible. It's incredible at this stage.
Yesterday, Mike, we felt a weight had lifted off of Carl Froch's shoulders once he got on and off the scales. I think that's the case.
Ladies and gentlemen, from Wembley Stadium, here in one of the greatest cities in the world, London, England, Eddie Hearn is proud to present the rematch the world has been waiting for. Will it be validation? Will it be revenge? 12 rounds of boxing for the super middleweight championship of the world. Brought to you live on Sky Sports Box Office and sponsored by Betway in association with Lonsdale and Rockstar Energy Drink. Sanctioned by the British Boxing Board of Control. Steward in charge, Charles Giles. The International Boxing Federation President and Supervisor, Darryl Peoples. The World Boxing Association President, Gilberto Mendoza. Supervisor, Jesper Jensen. At ringside, the 3 judges scoring this contest. From Mexico, Alejandro Lopez. From the United States, Michael Pernick. And from Panama, David Singh. And inside the ring, in charge of the action at the bell, your referee from the United States, Charlie Fitch. And now, the officials are ready. The fighters are ready. Boxing fans, are you ready? London, England, are you ready? For the thousands in attendance here at Wembley and the millions watching around the world, ladies and gentlemen, let's get ready to rumble! Fighting out of the red corner, wearing blue trimmed with white, officially weighing 11 stone, 12 pounds, 4 ounces. In his professional career of 20 contests, he has 19 victories, including 15 knockouts with only 1 defeat. From Hammersmith, London, England, the challenger, former British Empire and WBA Intercontinental Super Middleweight Champion, St. George Groves. And fighting out of the blue corner, wearing black, officially weighing in at 11 stone, 13 pounds, 9 ounces. In 34 professional bouts, he has 32 victories, including 23 knockouts, with only 2 defeats. From Nottingham, Nottinghamshire, England, presenting the unified IBF WBA reigning, defending super middleweight champion of the world, Hearn, the Cobra.
So after the controversy surrounding the referee's decision in the first fight, the last instructions now from the third man this evening, Charlie Fitch of New York. And the 2 men being called to the centre of the ring now. Froch arrives first, and here's Groves.
Okay. Good evening, gentlemen. You both know the rules. Touch gloves now. Come out fighting at the bell.
And so here, where England won the World Cup final in 1966, where the Olympic Games were revived in 1948, this magnificent stadium in its current guise is home to one of the great nights in British boxing history. It's Froch against Groves 2, the rematch. And so after 8.5 torrid rounds in Manchester 6 months ago, they start all over again with a crescendo of noise as the first bell rings. An exchange of jabs from 2 men, but it's tentative. Both of them very wary in these opening few seconds. They were both hit so hard and so often ultimately in the first contest. Groves steps forward, threatening with footwork alone, feints with the left hand but doesn't throw it. Froch moves around towards his right, away potentially from the danger of the right hand. George Groves said the problem punch for him this time would be the left hook. That would be the finishing tool, as he described it. Little scoring punching done in the first 30 seconds or so. A jab from each of them lands in the centre of the ring almost simultaneously. They're still trying to outguess each other here and to outgame each other. A good jab. The speed of Groves gets through again already. That first shot reddens the nose of Carl Froch. He knew from the outset that the speed of Groves here again would be a problem. What is he going to do to counter it? Single jab really from Groves is the only serious scoring punch at this stage. 1 minute and 15 seconds gone in the first round. Such a buzz all around, expectant at the first big punch that will land. Only jabs and light ones landing so far. Groves is on the prowl, looking to ping one of those right hands that floored Froch in the first round and hit him so hard so often in the first round in the whole fight last time around. Froch in the centre of the ring, trying to get off with his own jab, trying to get some timing and some rhythm going. Moves forward with a left hook that he almost withdrew before he finished the arc of the punch. Another jab from Groves in the centre of the ring. Groves tries a right hand after making Froch miss with his left jab, but Froch saw it coming and leaned back out of range. Froch more careful at this stage so far, but another stiff jab from Groves gets through, and a second one, beating Froch to the punch at the moment. The greater speed of Groves is telling at this stage, although Froch is very much in the contest and standing his ground in the centre of the ring. That's where most of the action has been so far. Froch flicks out 2 jabs, a second jab and then a third one, and that one lands on the chin of Groves, but Groves managed to flick out another one of his own. Again, they landed almost simultaneously, and it's only jabs that have landed with any resonance so far, with 20 seconds to go in the first round. The 2 men still carrying out their own scouting reports here. 2 more jabs from Groves get through, one to the torso, one to the chin. Groves has had more success than Froch with the jabs in the first round so far. Groves with his back to the ropes, close to us, moves away towards his right. Froch tries to open up on Groves. Groves is close to his own corner, now swings away towards his left. And a fairly quiet first round, much quieter than last time around, but Groves trying to show his greater speed and to make it work for him with the jab. Steve Bunce.
Well, Mike, that was a round from 2 men still plagued by the memories of the pain from their first encounter. It was painfully clear that the first minute there was going to be no contact. What was interesting, I thought, Richie, was the last 30 seconds, the last 40 seconds, Carl Carl did get closer, and he did try and drop that right hand over.
Yeah, what an anticlimax that first round was. Both boxers just very, very tentative, feeling each other out. I think the second half of the round then Carl started to work from the centre of the ring and keep Groves on the outside. Very difficult one to score, nothing in it at all. Could have gone either way, that one, Steve. It could have been an even round.
And the key is, Mike, can either of them continue to show that type of constraint?
Second out, round 2.
Well, it will be fascinating to see the response of the first big shot that lands. The first round was really a contest of jabs, exchanges of the lead left hands of both men. Froch, with slightly the longer reach, in my view, came off slightly second best in that opening round, because the greater volume of jabs from Groves did get through. And Groves starts with a jab again in the second round and then follows up with 2 to the torso area. Only the second one of that duo of punches landed. Groves goes to the body again, but this time he's met with a nice short, sharp jab on the high part of the head by Froch. An exchange of jabs for the third time in the contest. Both men land, both heads are rocked back. They take them solidly, and they stand once again in the centre of the ring, where most of the action has taken place so far. Froch tried a left hook. It was nicely defended by the right glove of George Groves, protecting the right-hand side of his chin. Groves steps forward again with another jab. They're still so wary. Froch almost blinks at his man as he tries to set up his next move. The speed of Groves is still slightly befuddling Froch, who opens up with a left-right combination, and now they're in a close quarter clinch, and they start punching away furiously here, and Groves is wrestled to the canvas, and Froch is told by the referee to listen in to his instructions. So too Groves now, whose gloves are wiped on the shirt, the light blue shirt of the referee Charlie Fitch, who's officiating in only his 6th world title fight. Halfway stage of round number 2, and still no solid, big, resonant shot has been landed by either man at this stage. Who will be the first to take the chance? Who will get there onto the opponent's chin and to try to turn the contest his way? It's so even at this stage. A winging right hand from George Groves. He had so much success in the first contest, but he's been shy of the target so far. Hasn't found his range. Got through on the side of the head, but so Froch opened up with a left-right combination of his own. Tried to draw George Groves onto the ropes, tried to drill him back there, but Groves almost bounces off the ropes and comes back to the centre of the ring, and a right hand over the top from Groves landed with terrific timing. Groves pinpoint accuracy on the side of the head of Froch, but Froch takes it well and stands his ground and comes straight back into the fray. Groves is trying to draw Froch back. Froch has got his back close to the ropes just above us. He moves around now towards his left. Right hand, but he walks onto a right hand from George Groves in a similar scenario to the first round in Manchester last November. But Froch, you get the sense now, is starting to fancy it in the centre of the ring, because he's getting the urge now to open up. Flicks out another jab, but it was a tentative one this time from Carl Froch. He wants to get that right hand over onto the left-hand side of the jaw of Groves. Groves is getting confident, you can tell, because he's dropped the left hand now, starting to look for openings. 2 jabs again from Groves, and they're scoring shots. And Froch lands with a jab, the last scoring punch of the second round. Steve Bunce.
The interesting thing, Mike, is that at this point, George Groves can win this fight with 10 jabs around. At some point, it has to change. One of them needs to make sure of victory later rounds by forcing it now. And I agree with what Adam Booth said, and I agree with what Virgil Hunter told us earlier in the week. It's not illegal to go for a walk. It's not illegal. But it isn't wise to do it in the first 2 rounds. One of them needs to make a statement here, Rich.
Yeah, I said in the build-up, about Carl Froch, he's not going to make the same mistakes, and he's not. This is why he's still being a little bit tentative, but he's not coming forward, he's not crossing his legs, and that's not giving George Groves the opportunities to land the right hand. So something's got to give. You'll probably see George Groves come forward a little bit more, which may suit Carl Froch.
Well, saying that, George is 2 up as far as I'm concerned on just landing a few more jabs.
Richie Woodall, how have you got it after 2 rounds?
I've got 1 even, I've got Froch 1 up.
So as close as we expected it to be, with George Groves having moderate success with the right hand in the second round, principally getting through with the left-hand jab because he found that he was faster. Is he determined now to last the pace better than he did last time around, even though he continues to argue to this day that he shouldn't have been stopped? He steps forward once again. The left hand of Groves is still being held very, very low. He's trying to tempt Froch into trying to exploit that gap, and Froch then leaving himself open. That's the plan from Groves here in the centre of the ring. These two seasoned pros, terrific pedigree as amateurs as well. They know so much, and they've taken so much in their careers so far, and they know that this means so much. Victory here on a night like this will be remembered long after their careers are over. For Froch, his career could be over tonight if he can't swing this his way. He lands with two jabs on the high part of the head of George Groves. And is this just a sign of disenchantment from the crowd here? One or two boos ringing around, and a lovely exchange of punches. Froch gets through with a left hook, then a right hand, and suddenly the fight comes to life because Groves got through as well, and Groves smirks at Froch as if to say, do you think you hurt me? And he came straight back at him. Both men landing with solid shots from the left hand and the right hand. Groves first, and then Froch followed up. Froch, as ever, looked ungainly, gets through with a jab as Froch steps back from the reply, which was a right hand from Groves. And suddenly now there's a momentum into this fight. Second half of round number 3, and the two men have landed heavier shots in this round than in the first two combined. Another right hand from Froch gets through, but a right hand also from Groves, and then a left uppercut from the challenger. And now Froch bites on the gum shield as if to say, this is now moving into my territory. I want to turn this into a slugfest. You can see that's the kind of thought that's coursing through his mind here. Groves moves around towards his right, holds the right glove very high, the left one low, waiting to ping the jab up and maybe try the left hook. Lovely left hook from George Groves, gets through, and he said that's the punch that would make the difference. It landed flush on the jaw of Froch, but Froch took it well again. Froch goes forward with a jab. 2 in a row land from Froch. He's up on his toes now, trying to force Groves back, but Groves is replying to every shot that he takes, and sometimes replying with interest. Last 30 seconds of round number 3, the best round of the contest so far. The two men land jabs in the centre of the ring. Groves tries another one, and it just whistles past the left-hand side of the jaw of Froch. Right hand from Groves gets through, and there's a roar of approval from his fans around here. Onto the left-hand side of the jaw of Froch, and sweat flew from the hair of Froch. That was a solid shot from Groves, who's landed more often and more significantly in this round than Froch has managed to do. 2 jabs as he drives forward again from Groves. He weighs, sways, and moves from the hips, trying to make Froch miss all the time, and Froch just readjusts his trunks as he makes his way slowly back to his corner on the far side of the ring. There's a much more strident march back to his corner by George Groves. Richie Woodall.
Yeah, I think in that round then George managed to catch Carl with a couple of good right hands, mainly because he brought Carl over that front foot. Up until this stage, you see, Carl hasn't been coming forward. He won't cross his feet. He won't make the same mistakes. But in that round, then he got a little bit more ambitious. And we know about Carl Froch with that low guard. As he comes forward, his guard's not too well. He came over the front foot trying to catch George. And we've got to remember, George has got the speed. So for me there, he just nicked that round, George Groves.
Yeah, he stole it on the speed, but that right hand he landed wasn't a fluky right hand. It's one he's looked to throw. He looked to throw it 4 or 5 times. He let it go there, and I sensed that Carl really felt that. I'm still a bit surprised by how wary they are of the other man's power at this stage. 9 minutes in.
And Carl Froch, for virtually the entire minute between rounds 3 and this one 4, was looking out over the shoulder of Robert McCracken at images of highlights of that previous round, and he takes a jab from Groves again at the start of the round. Groves is much the sharper of the two. He's got slightly shorter reach, but he's making up for that with the sheer speed. He's beating Froch for speed time and again with that left hand. Groves tries to wriggle his way in to punching range, making Froch miss once again. But as he motioned to throw a left hook, and he did it again there, it landed way short of the target, and there wasn't really any meaning behind the punch. He was just almost using it as a rangefinder. He flicks out a jab now, does Groves, and lands a big left hook and a right hand to follow up, does Groves. Solid work. And Froch, just for a moment, had to reposition his feet. Solid shot at the beginning of this round from George Groves, who's picking his punches in a much more clever fashion than he did in the opening fight. Has he learned those lessons? Because he's giving Carl Froch precious few opportunities here. Left, right again from Groves. The right hand, mercifully for Froch, just grazed the top of his head. Didn't connect with the chin or the temple, the dangerous areas. Froch flicks onto the front foot, tries a jab, but has had precious little success throughout the contest so far with that big follow-up right hand. He puts his chin behind his shoulder, does Froch, and gets on the front foot once again. Groves close to the ropes on our left-hand side as we look on. A lovely exchange of jabs. Groves tries to come back with a right hand. His head was jolted back then by a solid shot from Froch, who's still very much in the contest and still going after his man. Groves is voluntarily on the back foot for most of this round, trying to force Froch into mistakes and then to exploit the openings that the champion leaves. A minute just over to go in this, the fourth round. Again, it's been significant for Groves, who lands a left-right combination. Dangerous punches for Froch to be taking, and Froch tries to reply immediately, but it's only a pat of a left jab that lands way short of the distance, but he gets through with a slapping left hook, which just on the way through was deflected by the glove of George Groves. Otherwise it might have been trouble for the challenger. So Froch starts to open up again. He's taking big punches and coming straight back into the fray, into punching range. He takes another right hand on the side of the jaw, winging long punches from George Groves there, and he's made to miss, or is Carl Froch, as George Groves just slips underneath. Beautiful work by the challenger, composed under pressure. He tries now another left-right. Froch lands a short right of his own, goes to the body, clubs away to the body. Again, Groves covers up with the elbows. Last few seconds of round 4. Froch on the front foot, trying to claw back this points deficit now that's threatening to build up to an insurmountable lead for George Groves, who's looking so calm on the back foot. Froch with the left hand low, goes to the body with a jab. The bell sounds to end round 4.
He's nicking rounds, Mike, but he's not nicking them big, George Groves. He's showing incredible patience on that back foot against these ropes in this tiny ring. And Carl's waiting, simply waiting too long. Now, is it the fact he's got the memory inside his skull of when he was so hurt in the first fight, so hurt in the first round and the 6th round? Or is it simply that he's convinced he can put his foot down over the next couple of rounds? It's a long time to not have done that much.
Yeah, you tend to be waiting for something to happen from Groves rather than Froch. Froch is coming forward, but the speed is definitely coming from Groves, and so you're literally waiting for him to land that big right hand. Some of these rounds, though, Steve, are hard to score because Froch is keeping Groves on the outside. He's walking forward. He's not doing a lot, but it looks like the way he's coming forward and keeping his opponent back on the ropes. Some judges like that, Steve.
So you can have it 4-0 or 2-2.
Into round 5. Carl Froch steps forward from his corner, the blue corner on the far side of the ring, and clubs his gloves together as if to say now it's time to get going. And he really does need to get going here because we sense that he is behind. He goes to the body with a jab, and Groves just misses with a dipping right hand, almost Thomas Hearn style, onto the left-hand side of the head of Froch. Froch again blinks as he gets set to lead off with a jab. 2 jabs from Froch, but he doesn't go in with the feet behind them. It's just an arm shot, and it lands way short. A much sharper shot from Groves, who steps in behind it, moves in 6 inches with the left foot, and then straight back out of range. He does it again, this time with a jab to the body. And Froch here is being troubled by the sheer speed. He starts to try to open up here. He goes to the body and the head with a jab, but Groves is too fleet of foot on this occasion. Groves has been terrific defensively here this evening, swaying from the body, moving the head, and terrific footwork as well. Left-right combination from Groves draws applause from some pockets of the crowd here. Now Froch opens up, a left-right-left combination. Groves covers up in Froch's own corner. Froch opens up once again now, a clubbing right hand onto the left-hand side of the jaw of George Groves. Groves takes it well, comes back to the relative sanctuary of the centre of the ring. Now can Froch capitalise on that success, the best success he's had in the contest so far, halfway through round number 5, and he drove Groves back to his own corner, the blue corner, and he unleashed a flurry of punches that finished with a short, sharp right hook, and Groves, just for a moment, was under pressure for the first time in the fight, but Groves has responded like a challenger, but like a champion too, because he's showing Froch here that he's ready to come back, and a brilliant right hand from Groves in the centre of the ring, and suddenly there was just a sign that the legs of Froch might be ready to stiffen. Beautiful overhand right from Groves. He tries the same 2-punch combination. This time Froch moved back out of the way, Groves with the left hand is still quicker. Now Froch opens up at close range just above us, pounds away towards the body with those attacks that eventually told in terms of wear and tear on Groves in the first fight. Groves punches to the body. He's caught with an uppercut. Another left hook from Froch. A right hand from Froch. The two men are swinging away, Wild West style, in the centre of the ring. And now Groves virtually beckons Froch forward, and Froch doesn't need any such invitation. 20 seconds to go in round 5. 2 jabs from Groves, one in reply from Froch. He's up on his toes, is Froch now. He wants to draw his man into close quarters. That's where he's having the best success. At long range, it's Groves' fight. Up close, it's all about Carl Froch. Which of them will hold sway? Another good jab from Carl Froch at the end of the round. Signs that Carl Froch is working his way into the contest at last for the champion.
It took 12 minutes, Mike, and then it happened. We saw that degree of urgency as Carl Froch came out for the 5th round there. He pushed Groves back, he manhandled him back. The punches were not all brilliant, but he was forceful, he was strong, and he showed that degree of strength. There were some fantastic jabs going in, and George, stupidly in my opinion, decided to trade. He could have just had a wander. George could have had a wander. Why was he trading, Richie?
Yeah, what's happening now, Steve, is Carl in that round has literally dragged George Groves into a toe-to-toe battle. Groves has been doing really well with his hit-and-move tactics, but there he held his feet for too long. He literally tried it on with Carl Froch, and he came off second best. I should imagine now his corner are going to be saying to him, you've got to hit and move.
Round 6.
Well, we're hearing at ringside all sorts of different opinions as to how this fight is going. Is controversy stirring once again? So we start round number 6. Carl Froch with a good round in 5, getting up close like he needs to do more often here. But when he did get up close, he made it distinctly uncomfortable for George Groves, whose face is now reddened, but otherwise unmarked. Groves tries another one of those overhand rights. A brilliant right hand from Froch drives Groves back to the ropes, but Groves did land in that exchange as well. The two men here are really starting to open up now. The 5th round was the best of the fight, and it looks like they've resumed in the same manner here at the start of the 6th round. 50 seconds gone. They're in the centre of the ring. A feint from Froch. Just got set to throw a jab and thought twice about it. The two men here still trying to keep each other guessing, but taking many more chances now than they did in the first couple of rounds. Why wouldn't they have been wary after the attrition of the first fight? They're swaying and weaving here and posing and posturing in front of each other here, waiting for the opening to land the big shots, the troubling shots. And now an overhand right from Groves is seen again by Froch. He read it this time, and Groves then just stepped back out of the fray because he feared another one of those big clubbing right hands from Froch might be making its way towards his chin sometime soon, and so he took evasive action. Left hook from Froch lands on the shoulder of Groves, who's now got a red blemish beneath his left eye. On those prominent cheekbones of his, he's got a red blemish. Will that cause him problems later in the fight? Froch tries to tee him off with a couple of jabs to make room, punching room for the following right hand. In the centre of the ring they come again. They're virtually patting each other's left-hand lead here, and the crowd here sensing that the two men could be doing more. And that's a misunderstanding of what's going on here, because these two men are giving everything in terms of their mental strength here. Froch tries to open up, left hook, then a right hand, but Groves was moving away towards his right, and so nullified the danger of those punches and took away a lot of the power. Lovely jab from Froch, another one in reply from Groves. Groves misses now, and he's shy of the distance. The sharpness of the earlier rounds has been slightly blunted over the course of the journey of the first 5. Froch now opens up. Groves holds on the ropes and tries to swing Froch round onto the ropes now, and he does it as they turn 180 degrees. They're separated by the referee, who's had an otherwise fairly easy night tonight. These two men just want to get on with it. 15 seconds to go in round number 6. There's blood appearing now on that cut. It's just a nick really on the left-hand side of the face of Groves, who tries to open up, but he's caught with shots by Groves on the ropes, by Froch now, who opens up. Froch is in his own territory now. This is where he wants it to be, up close, a slugfest. And another good round for Carl Froch at the end of the sixth. Steve Bunce.
Well, the interesting thing there is that is the round, the sixth round. That was the round that was so pivotal, so crucial in the first fight, because we thought at that point that Groves was heavily in front. That's also the round that the psychologist, that the psychiatrists have told George Groves will be the round that Carl Froch suffers in. I thought Carl Froch took that round. I thought he took the previous round. I'm still staggered and stunned that George is allowing himself to be trapped on the ropes. But there again, perhaps it's because the ring is 18 tiny feet.
Yeah, the problem that George has got here, Steve and Mike, is that he's slowed down. For some reason, maybe it's the occasion, maybe it's the nerves, maybe he's trying to get into his second wind. He's definitely slowed down, and his speed is his number one aspect that he's got. That's what he's got to keep going, is the speed, and he's just lost it for a minute, and that's suiting Carl Froch.
What about this? What about George Groves as too overconfident?
And so we move into the second half of this eagerly awaited contest. Did George Groves believe it would be too easy to find the openings again in Carl Froch? It's been much tighter, much tighter over the course of the first half of this fight once again. And Froch now just wipes some sweat from beneath his nose, but as he's doing that, so he's caught off guard by Groves with a brilliant left hand. Sweet, sharp jab from Groves to the side of the head of Froch. And now Froch tries to throw one to the body, but he's beaten to that shot by Groves. Groves is feinting, tries a jab, he's made to miss. Exchange of jabs from the two men. And a jab from George Groves there as Carl Froch was moving in off balance, and Carl Froch has had to just step off then and just recoup and regather his senses here. Solid shot from George Groves, and that's given the challenger inspiration to move on to the front foot. He takes a jab though as he gets a bit wild. Groves, lovely solid jab from Carl Froch. Again, the granite chin of Carl Froch comes to his aid as Groves tries to open up in centre ring. It was a sharp, long, solid jab that did the damage in this round for George Groves, and Froch just had to back up once again and to get his senses back together. Now they're in the centre of the ring, coming towards the halfway stage of round number 7 of a contest that's so close, could still go either way. Groves moves on to the back foot. Froch drives him into the ropes and tries to open up, and so Groves ducks underneath the ammunition from Froch, and Froch is frustrated and can't land with any real precision at that stage. Groves goes towards the torso. Froch feints with a jab towards the body, and then a left hook to the head, a clubbing right uppercut towards the body, but Groves landed within that exchange as well. The two men landing solidly once again here in the 7th round. Froch tries to throw a jab as Groves throws one, so Froch just parries it with the right glove. Solid defence from Carl Froch, which was so sorely missing throughout the first contest. He's been tighter in this fight, although he has still been caught time and again, and that's evidenced by his very red nose at this stage. Couple of jabs from Groves, landing on the torso. A third one in that salvo lands on the chin. A left hook from George Groves. The punch he said would be the finisher here lands only on the glove of Froch. And a lovely right hand, then a left hand from Froch. And Groves is in trouble here on the ropes, but he lands a couple of big uppercuts. Terrific response from George Groves, who seemed to fall back onto the ropes, but still had the presence of mind to whip in a couple of short, sharp uppercuts. That's the kind of toe-to-toe confrontation that 80,000 people have bought tickets for here. Closing seconds of round number 7. Froch drives forward with a right hand. Desperate now to try to follow up that attack as he pinned Groves on the ropes on the far side of the ring. And let's now, for the first time, head to the corner of Carl Froch and hear what Robert McCracken has to say.
Give him shots, all right? You've got to close the gap on him. You're standing outside too long. Once you're there, he's all over the place. Yeah. You can't. Listen, you've got 5 rounds to go. You've got to win every one of the rounds. You've got to stop letting him land the odd jab or the odd catching shot. Shit. That's all it is. You're giving him the odd shot. Yeah. Move your head, move your feet, right? Listen.
And so Robert McCracken saying there, you've got to win all of these remaining rounds. Now, I know that's what you'd expect a trainer to say, but there is concern in that corner.
Well, and so there should be, because I kind of agree with him, and he's absolutely right. And what McCracken said there is you're letting him win it with one round. What's going on? You're letting him win it with one jab. It's absolutely ridiculous. I've got it at the moment, Mike, 4-3, but some of those early rounds, they were very tight and very even.
4-3 to
George Groves.
I got it the other way around. I got 4-3 to Carl Froch.
This is so close. 7 rounds completed, and we've got it 4 rounds to 3 either way. Is this going to go all the way to the final bell? Can George Groves last out the 12-round distance? So many questions have been raised about his ability to go the full championship distance against a warrior of the instinct of Carl Froch. An exchange of jabs, and Groves gets the better of it. Over towards the far side of the ring. Froch goes to the body with a right hand, solid shot, but he misses with the follow-up left hook, and he takes a jab from Groves for his pains. Another jab from Groves. That's been a successful shot for Groves throughout the contest here, and now he throws 2 jabs, and then a right hand lands on the left-hand side of the head of Carl Froch. Lovely clinical precision work from George Groves. Beautiful work at the start of this, the 8th round. There's a minute gone. Froch is taking up residence in the centre of the ring and leans over his front foot, trying to land a left jab and to open up a gap to find punching room for a follow-up right hand. This time Groves goes in with 2 jabs and then slips underneath the reply from Froch and tries to whip in another one of those right uppercuts. So impressive on the ropes was Groves under pressure. He did look to be in trouble, but then came back with short, sharp uppercuts. Lands a jab, misses with the right hand as Groves, and so too does Froch. He gets a little bit desperate, does Froch, and now he takes 2 jabs, one to the chin, Froch, and one to the torso. Groves close to the corner, neutral corner just above us. Froch tries to open up, but Groves sways and bobs and weaves and makes him miss with all 3 punches in the attack. Frustration for Carl Froch, who takes a huge lungful of breath as the referee beckons them both back to the centre of the ring. Just over a minute to go in round number 8. 2 jabs and then a right hand from Groves, but a short, sharp right hand from Froch got through. Left, right from Froch, but Groves makes him miss. Wonderful evasive work again from George Groves. He's close to Froch's own corner, standing virtually stock still, inviting Froch forward. Now a jab from Groves, then a right hand from Groves. Groves works away inside. Froch tries to do the same. Beaten for speed once again, even in this, the 8th round. There are just pockets of action in which Groves is showing his speed once again. A jab, a left hook from Groves, and now Froch works away to the body, but Groves covers up so well. Right hand to the body from Froch, left hook to the head from George Groves. Once again they open up, an overhand right from Carl Froch on the ropes just above us, and it is all over. One single sharp right hand from Carl Froch. George Groves sent tumbling to the canvas on his left-hand side. No chance of beating the count. The referee waves it off almost immediately. Carl Froch is lifted aloft by those in his corner. He raises both gloves. What a sensational finish to this, one of the great nights in British boxing history, when the vultures of doubt were swirling all around the career of Carl Froch. He has produced the most blistering, bludgeoning answer, and he has knocked out George Groves in the 8th round with one of the best right hands you will ever see. Carl Froch, at the age of 36, has beaten the younger man. He is still the world champion.
Mike, there was a point now about 20 seconds before when you saw him looking, you saw him teeing him up for that right hand, and something came over George this last 3 rounds. As he closed the gap, you could see the strength draining away from George Groves. Richie talked about how slow he was, and the right hand he went down, he didn't move for 2 or 3 seconds, and Charlie Fitch called it off. Let's not have any controversy now, because I was just about to score that round to make the fight 4-4.
Yeah, Steve, you know what, Mike, you won't throw a shot like that in your career. That was a peach of a punch, wasn't it? And it was needed. I thought that George Groves was busy. He kept staying on the outside. That was the tactic. You could tell he was only exchanging for short bursts, then he was going back on the outside. But Carl Froch was getting closer and closer to him. And I said that he was getting slower and slower, and his movement was getting slower. Not only was his hand speed getting slower, but his movement around the ring was getting slower. He was getting a little bit more predictable, and Froch landed the shot.
And Carl was looking for one punch. We said that after about round 3. Stunningly and amazingly, he was looking for a single punch finish. Now, I've got to be honest with you, I tipped Carl Froch, but under no circumstances did I think there was any chance of a knockdown and a knockout like that, under no circumstances.
Well, there'll be no arguments this time. George Groves is still on the stool in his corner. What a shot from Carl Froch. Groves fell like he was hit by a sniper from the stands. One single right hand, flush on the jaw, and George Groves in his second world title fight will leave here the loser, and he won't remember an awful lot about this evening. But warm applause now rings around this arena as he steps into the centre of the ring to congratulate Carl Froch. For now at least, and let's hope for a long time to come, the animosity is dissipating. It was a wonderful performance by George Groves until he just left himself open to such a wonderful punch. Carl Froch in his 12th world title fight at the age of 36. Where did he find that shot from? So often in the past he's had to go the full 12-round distance, but tonight he found the accuracy and the precision with the best punch that he has thrown in his career. And that reaction you're hearing from the crowd behind me is the replay of the finishing concussive punch on the screens. It was a bad knockdown, and the referee just got set to start the count, but then immediately waved his hands. And the gameness, the bravery of George Groves had him protesting even then when he had no energy left in the legs. It was close to his own corner. He slumped over to his own corner, and he was a man, Mike, beaten in his second world title fight.
That type of shot, Mike,
flat on his back.
That type of shot, Mike, sorry to interrupt, it was a shot that the referee didn't even bother to count. No. He literally went and got onto his knees. Oh, we're seeing it again. And George, the way he falls, his leg is all bent over, and the referee's just looking at him, and then he drops to his knees. He doesn't even bother to count. What a punch that was.
And these are two men here, Steve Bunce and Richie Woodall, who in their different guises throughout years in the sport, probably a combined 75 years of watching sport, are both saying ooh when they're watching replays of this finishing punch here. It was one of the great knockout punches of all time, like Sugar Ray Robinson against Gene Fulmer, like Rocky Marciano against Jersey Joe Walcott in the 1950s. Those single stunning shots.
Mike, he teed him up for it. You watch it again, he taps him. He'd been tapping him with that left. And I kept wondering, why was Carl throwing an open-handed left hook? He wasn't. He was tapping him. He tapped him.
Bringing him round, Steve, wasn't he? Bringing him round.
It was not only one of the best knockouts I've seen. It was by far the best knockout that Carl Froch has ever scored. And Mike, we've been ringside. We've been watching him now for about 13, 14 years. What a finish.
George Groves fell in a spot where we could almost have helped him to his feet, but that would have taken some doing because the concussive effects of the punch left him sat on his stool for a long time. He is now mercifully on his feet. He's still being patted on the back by his cornermen and his camp and his friends and family, but this will take some getting over for George Groves. The hurt will last into tomorrow for him and for many tomorrows to come as Carl Froch savours the moment here. So many were predicting that this might be the end of his career here this evening. Well, you know what? It might be, but it will be on his terms. And if it is, what a swan song. Here's Michael Buffer with the official announcement here coming up very shortly.
He's not a happy man, Michael Buffer, at the moment.
Ladies and gentlemen, the official time, 2 minutes, 34 seconds, round number 8. This contest comes to an end. The winner by knockout victory, and still the unified IBF WBA super middleweight champion of the world, Hearn, the Cobra.
And so on one of the great nights in British boxing history, we've seen one of the great punches in British boxing history decide the outcome. And Carl Froch in his 12th world title fight. He'll be remembered for many deeds and many fights down the years. but there'll be nothing for him and the crowd here tonight like this one. The night in front of 80,000 people when he held on to his versions of the world titles with the most stunning knockout in the 8th round against George Groves. Carl Froch is still the champion of the world.
Mike, you know, you've seen him come back in that 12th round against Jermaine Taylor. When he'd been down, he was trailing on the scorecards. We've seen him rally against Kessler. We've seen him box superbly against Arthur Abraham. Tonight we saw him in a fight where there was nothing in it. I had it 4-3 to George and Richie had it 4-3 to Carl. But can I just remind you of something? At the start of that round, I made a note. They're booing again. We have 80,000 people in here tonight, and if any of them booed, I hope they're rethinking that. The final punch, I really think, Robert McCracken and Carl had been working on that punch. And here's the other thing, Mike, I said it at the start of the end of December, the start of the 8th round. I believe and I maintain George Groves, Paddy Fitzgerald, Callis Howland, who's just paid him €1 million to sign with him, they all underestimated Carl. They thought it was a walkover on the Wembley turf tonight.
And Carl Froch didn't need to talk about the right hand in press conferences and at weigh-ins in the build-up. He kept his counsel about what he was going to do here this evening, and in so many ways George Groves will have learned so much from his experience here tonight.
Mike, when you look at this fight, the tactics from Froch were plain and simple. He had to keep his opponent on the outside and keep him on the back foot. In the first fight, it was Groves who was pushing Froch back and catching him with the right hand, but in this contest you're seeing Carl boxing from the centre of the ring and keeping George on the outside. Now George would have some success, but then he would go back onto the outside, but he got slower. The speed in the hand, the speed in the foot slowed down, and that's all Carl Froch needed. And the finish was superb, you know, when you look at it, because he actually poured out his left hand to bring him onto his right hand, and then he sent the right hand over. Fantastic.
Let's get this right, you see, because in parts of this build-up, and it's been perfectly staged and orchestrated by George Groves and Paddy Fitzpatrick, that have led some to believe that Carl Froch is just a caveman who turns up, clubs and bludgeons, and that's all he can do. This is a man who won a silver medal at the World Amateur Championships. That's tremendous pedigree. He's got a terrific boxing brain. Yes, his heart gets the better of him. Yes, his chin has kept him in fights. But this is a quality fighter. This is a fighter suited to the big occasion. And what's great for Carl Froch, who, let's be fair, has been short on recognition down the years, on tonight, the night of all nights that nobody here will ever forget, he's come good. This is the night they'll remember. For all he's done in his career, they will say, and that he won the big one at Wembley, and what a punch he did it with.
And Mike, that's all he's been saying. That's the only thing he's been saying. And he said it to you, and we talked about it. We analysed it on 5 Live with Chappers and Paulie Malignaggi the other night. There was a throwaway line. This is the way I want to go out. This is how I will go out. He has planned. He has fought this through. It wasn't a lucky punch. The first 4 rounds being quiet, all he was doing was edging closer forward. And George Groves, for all of the fantastic training, the conditioning, the preparation, and every single thing else, at the end of the day, there's no preparation for being chased around the ring by a world champion in an 18-foot ring in front of 80,000 people. That trains you like no calisthenics could ever do in a gym, like no run and like no sparring session. And I can't believe that sometimes we forget that most basic rule. Yeah. In there, nothing that's happened out here counts. It's that simple.
Yeah, and Mike, this sport is a game of like physical chess. And there was people out there that were booing because all they wanted to see was them stand toe-to-toe and trade and knock lumps out of each other. Well, I'm sorry, but this sport's about hitting your opponent and not getting hit. And Carl Froch demonstrated there that he's not just a caveman and he's not just someone who'll grind out in the trenches. He's a thinking boxer, and he applied the right tactics and he fought the right fight. And you know what? Fair play to George Groves. George Groves played his part as well. And Mike, George Groves, I'm telling you now, one day will be a world champion. He's got speed, he's got quality, he's got power, he's got all the ingredients to be a world champion. But he just wasn't on this night. Because Mike, if anything, he just lapsed, Steve, in a little bit of concentration. And you have to have concentration every second of every round in a world title fight of this magnitude.
It was his concentration which lost him the first fight. He was G'd up by Paddy in the corner. He responded, and he started to try and take the initiative away from Carl. He didn't need to do it in the first fight, and tonight he did lose his concentration. And I'll tell you what, I don't think Carl Froch will fight again. I don't think Carl Froch will give James DeGale his fight. But Mike, they sold 20,000, James DeGale and George Groves. They'll do the same back here inside Wembley. They'll do 60,000. That's the fight.
And remember, James DeGale has been saying also in the build-up that he believes Carl Froch for him is an easy fight. I think he might be having second thoughts about that as the two men sit on the ring apron here and prepare to do their television interviews. We'll keep talking during the interview here, which many in the stadium will be listening to. But another factor here tonight, you were talking, Richie and Steve, about the concentration levels, and you look at the career logs. Carl Froch has been 12 rounds or into the 12th round 10 times. George Groves twice. There is something about building that muscle in the brain, the concentration in the brain, just like you build the rest of the body.
Yeah. I mean, Groves there, George Groves, he just switched off, didn't he, Mike? He went on the outside, just switched off and got caught. You know, Carl Froch just whipped out this left hand and then threw the right hand that hit the chin. Steve, it's just a lapse in concentration, but as you say, he's only had his second 12-round contest. He will learn from this.
He will. Actually, I hope he does learn from it, because we talked about him learning from the first fight. I don't think he has. I've been with George one-on-one in different studios. I've been with Paddy one-on-one in different studios. And I am telling you, hand on heart, they didn't think this was a contest. They might start talking now like we knew it would be hard, we knew it would be tough. I am telling you, in off-the-record conversations and chats, they both thought, George Groves and Paddy and their small team, they've got a tiny team, they were convinced that man who we're watching on a screen here, the big screen with the remaining crowd, is too old, too slow, too predictable, and what's more, they didn't think he fancied the fight. I'm telling you that now.
And here's an irony, Steve. George Groves and his team seem to be preparing for this fight in the mood that Carl Froch prepared for the first fight. In the first fight, Carl Froch's chin got him through. And that's the big difference here. Carl Froch couldn't countenance any opinion that suggested George Groves was a serious challenge. Attitude is so important. I was saying to Adam Booth in the build-up to this fight, attitude is so important to how a fighter performs.
Mike, I keep saying it, that in that first fight, George Groves fought with fear. And when you fight, been there in a fight, when you fear someone and you can't make any mistakes, or you're trying to punish him for his mistakes, you fight with fear. He didn't fight with fear tonight. It's totally different. As you said, Steve, he was too confident. And I actually said before this contest to many people, that may be his undoing, because he might come over his front foot a little bit more. But Carl Froch didn't let him come over his front foot, kept him on the outside, and when he did venture forward, he walked onto right hand.
And Carl fought like a man who knew everything depended on what happened during that 36 minutes. He knew it was all about that fight there tonight. It was nothing about the future fights. If he'd have scraped home 1 point, he knew it was about that. What we were seeing in that ring, and however he was going to leave the ring. And there's a look on his face there, Mike. That's a content look. That's a happy look. We're watching the screen here. That's a happy look. I would be amazed if he fights again.
And look also at the demeanour. I know everybody listening at home can't see this, but George Groves is just staring into space at the moment. On 5 Live Boxing on Thursday evening, we spend a lot of time talking about the punishment that fighters take and how often when they're hit hard on the chin, they don't remember it for days to come. A fighter called the Old Mongoose, Archie Moore, light heavyweight champion deep into his 40s, once said that getting hit hard on the chin left you walking the street of dreams. George Groves right now is walking the street of dreams.
And Mike, looking at George Groves there, yeah, you know what? He thought he had the blueprint to beat Carl Froch tonight. And what surprised him more than anything was Carl Froch didn't come forward, didn't cross his feet, just didn't come forward and sort of lunge forward and leave himself open. That's what he did in the first fight, and George Groves thought that was going to happen again tonight, because he didn't think that Carl could box any other way, Steve.
He did it in the 7th round. Was the first time he got caught when he crossed his feet and he got caught with a left hook. It was the first time that he'd actually crossed his feet, and he went back there, and I swear to you, Mike, and I'm not being an after timer, it looked like he was talking to himself and saying, don't you dare do that again, don't you dare do that again. And that was the look I saw, because that's exactly what he was doing, because he knew that's what led to the knockdown in the first round of the first fight, and that could have led to the same tonight. But every single good punch, really good punch, that George Groves connected with tonight, and he connected with enough big right hands, Mike. All of them, Carl could absorb because he was riding back. He managed to ride them. He didn't ride a single punch. I said today in the paper that in the first fight, they each shared the idiot gene, and I think that was a fair assessment.
We're hoping to speak to Carl Froch and maybe George Groves, although I sense with the security personnel around George Groves moving closer and closer to him, they'll want to get him off to the changing rooms. And there's no surprise in that, but there's a smile on the face. It's a smile of contentment for Carl Froch, and why not? Because he was doubted by so many. In this, his 12th world title fight, some were preparing to write the epitaph on his career, and there's a huge smile now. Will there be one more fight for Carl Froch? We'll find out. Will there be more than one more? He was telling me in fairly cryptic terms just after the final press conference here, high above this pitch surface area, that there were 2 or 3 fights to come, but he kept saying, after I'm finished, and there was just a sense that maybe tonight would bring down the curtain on his career. But we'll get more on that as soon as we can get ringside to talk to him here. But he's got so many options now, such an attraction with a punch like that, with a style like he's got. We've known for so long that he brings so much to ringside, and now once again he is still the world champion. So much to barter with.
He's got so much to barter with if he was prepared to sell himself to Las Vegas and go and fight Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. But Mike, here's the thing. We know tonight Carl's going to walk away with between £6 and about £8 million. So that's $10-11 million. He's not going to get that unless he can cut off an arm and fight Floyd Mayweather in Las Vegas. And I really mean it. So why fight? Why fight in front of 16,000 people in Las Vegas for a third of what he's made tonight in a fight that won't be easy, because Chavez won't allow him to have an 18-foot ring. He'll have a 26-foot ring. Why go overseas? Why put himself through it again? And equally, and I don't mean to kibosh and kick the James DeGale idea, in the privates, because he's had a fantastic win tonight, James DeGale, to get himself in the mandatory position for the win of this fight with Carl Froch. But Carl Froch and James DeGale are not going to sell anything like this. The money's not going to be there. And money is one of the main reasons why fighters retire. They're either not getting enough of it, or they've had too much of it.
I sense the personality of Carl Froch might fancy keeping James DeGale waiting. Although DeGale did win the official eliminator this evening, there are ways and means when you've got the power now, and the pulling power of Carl Froch. Still smiling, can't help himself but smile at ringside. Now in 35 fights, still just those 2 defeats. One to Andre Ward, the undisputed #1 in this division, and the one avenged against Mikkel Kessler. 24 of Carl Froch's 33 wins now inside the distance. Never, though, has he thrown a punch, amateur or professional, like the long right hand that cannoned off the chin of George Groves here this evening. What a memory for everybody to take away from here this evening.
Absolutely tremendous, Mike. We're just looking at Carl again with that beaming smile, and George obviously totally the opposite. Still a lot of people just around us trying to get to talk to him. A lot of people have actually left Wembley now at the moment, but still there's still people in their seats, Steve, trying to just soak up the atmosphere a little bit. But it's amazing. I just think Robin McCracken, he just leant over and he looked at me and he went, "Richie, we've been practicing that shot." That's what he said to me, just shouted from the ringside.
And Richie, that's exactly what I said. I'm not surprised. I thought that they'd been practicing that shot. It was too good a shot. And you know what? I don't often disagree with you, Rich. You and I have worked 10 years, different channels, different radios. We've been around a lot. But I think that could be a shattering loss for George Groves. Not because of any injury, long-term injury from the right hand, but because in his mind, it was a walkover. I'm going to ask you about Enzo Maccarinelli, David Haye. Enzo Maccarinelli went into that fight as an absolute favourite in his head. Yeah. He thought David Haye had no chin.
Steve, the only thing I would say, though, but before...
Let's go to Pugas.
Here we go.
I'm here, Carl Froch. Carl, you're live on 5 Live. Congratulations. Talk us through that. That was the punch of a lifetime, wasn't it?
That was a great right hand. I timed it. I was trying to close the gap on George without getting caught with a silly shot myself. I was trying to close him down a bit earlier, and at times the crowd were getting a bit bored because I could hear him booing. I thought, I'm not going to force it. I'm going to just still take my time, stick to the game plan, and that's what I did. But it's because I was backing him up and biding my time, and I knew as soon as I land and connect correctly, a couple of the right hands went over the top of his head. Just missed him, and I thought, right, I need to just time it a little bit, throw a little fake first, then put the right hand on it. talking a little bit technical now, but...
No, but you were setting him up for it, weren't you?
Setting him up for the right hand that I knew once connected correctly on the chin, on the jaw section of the cranium, anywhere around there would have been all over, and it was. And when it landed, I knew it was a heavy shot, and it hurt him bad. You saw it for yourself. His leg was twisted back, he was on his back, and he was in trouble.
Is that one of the best punches you've ever thrown, particularly given the circumstances?
It must be the best punch I've ever thrown and landed in my life, because under the circumstances, in front of 80,000 at the National Stadium, it's not going to get any better than that, is it? Let's be honest. That was absolutely, and I don't like using absolutely fantastic, but it was absolutely fantastic.
And were you looking at it from the word go? Were you thinking, I've got to set him up at some stage, whenever it is? As you say, ignore the boos, but I know what I'm doing here.
I think there was boos on both sides tonight. I think we both got booed. Did anybody get cheered? I know I got cheered at the end, which was nice. But no, I was setting him up. I didn't want to just look for the right hand. I was getting the jab, the hook off the jab. But he's very, very quick, George, and he hit me with a couple of right hands. He actually buzzed me a little bit with a shot, because I walked into it and I thought, right, I can't be walking into them. This is, you know, take my time. And I know it's a 12-round sport, and I've always got 12 rounds in me, so I was just patient and executing my game plan to perfection. And there you have it. That's boxing. Flat on his back, leg twisted around the back of his ankle and that. And you know, it was a sorry sight actually in the end for him. But thankfully he's recovered well. He's healthy and fit, and I'm still champ.
Do you think he underestimated you, Carl, tonight?
I think he came in very, very confident, probably overconfident, and he talked to Gooden for so long. I think when he got in, he may have thought to himself, bloody hell, what have I done here? Now I've got to back it up. And I think it was a little bit deer in the headlights, but he put that pressure on himself.
What did you think, before you hit him with that punch, what did you think in your mind maybe the score was?
I thought it was very close. I thought I was outmanoeuvring him, backing him up and making him work and sending him around the outside of the ring. So although I don't think there was much in it, I think I was just nicking the rounds, and I definitely lost 1 or 2 rounds, but I think I was ahead. Do you know the scores?
Well, I to be honest with you, you know, we got Richie Woodall with us as T Bunce, and I think it was 4-3 both ways. It was that close. It was that close.
So can't argue with that.
Yeah. Couple more from me. What about the occasion? What about the atmosphere? What about the stage? British boxing, 80,000 here tonight.
Oh, unbelievable! I mean, this is an unbelievable event to be involved in this boxing match, and it is a boxing match at a national stadium. It just doesn't happen. We've made history here. For me to be involved in this is just phenomenal, unbelievable. It will never be beaten in my lifetime, certainly. Not by anybody else. I'm talking about me. Somebody else might do it, but this happens once every decade, or is it once every 20 years? So for me and my family and my kids, you know, obviously my kids are my family, but my kids especially, when they grow up and look back at this event, this is going to be a moment in the history of my life where I will never, ever forget. And my kids and their kids, it's just unbelievable. I still can't believe it. I'll look back in a couple of weeks maybe and realise what I've done. But at the minute, I just can't, I've got to get my head around it, to be honest.
So what next, Carl, then? James DeGale obviously won. He's a mandatory challenger for your IBF belt. What next for you, Carl Froch?
I'd like to fight again. I said this may be my last fight. It may not be. I think after the way I took him out and dispatched him, I wasn't in a war there. I didn't get hit with too many shots. I don't know what my face looks like. My nose always looks swollen, but it's hard to miss this nose, to be honest. But I feel good. I feel like I didn't really get hit with any shots. It wasn't a war, which was nice and refreshing. I boxed, so that fight didn't take anything out of me. I'd love to fight in Las Vegas, purely because it's the fight capital of the world. It's something I've never done. I think I've done everything else, plus beyond. With an 80,000 seat stadium, I've done everything and more, but I've not boxed in Las Vegas. And all my heroes before me, Mike Tyson, Lennox Lewis, Vander Holyfield, Nassim Hamed, they've all boxed in Las Vegas. So, you know, I'd love to do that.
Terrific, Carl. Well, you could tell from our experts where they went ooh and ah watching the replays what a punch it was. So many congratulations.
Thank you to all the listeners. Thank you for the great interview. Take care.
Thank you very much indeed. Carl Froch there, still the champion. Mike, back to you.
And Stephen Nolan is waiting to take your calls, 0500 909 693 with your opinions. We're now going to get the opinion of the man who staged this spectacular evening here tonight, Eddie Hearn. And we were saying about Carl Froch having such a wide smile. I think the only smile in this entire place that's wider is yours, Eddie. What a night.
I mean, you know, I'm very fond of Carl Froch. You know, he's almost a hero of mine, because before even we got involved, he did some amazing things, but no one really got to see it, you know. And everything that he's done throughout his whole career came down to tonight. And it's not really on, to be honest with you, when you think he beat Pascal, he went and stopped Jermaine Taylor in the last round, he boxed Andre Durrell, you know, he boxed Mikhail Kessler, lost, he come back, he schooled Abraham, you know, he fought Glenn Johnson, he boxed Andre Ward, he boxed Boutte to win his title back, then he fought Yusuf Mack, then he boxed Kessler, then he boxed Groves. I mean, you know, but unfortunately in this game, you're only as good as your last performance. And he was so nervous tonight. Carl Froch was petrified.
And that's such a good sign.
Exactly. And I said, you know, I needed to see that. If you look at his eyes and the way his cheeks were blowing in the first round, it was exactly the same in the Boutte fight. Because he was fearful of George Groves. And he wasn't in the first fight. And, you know, the fight was going okay. I wanted him to force the pressure a little bit more because we were coming in 8, 9 rounds and George was tiring, but he wasn't as tired as you'd like him to be after 8 or 9 rounds. And, you know, but Carl's very clever, underrated as a fighter, you know, and I know his style's not orthodox, but he's very smart, very clever, and he had to do that tonight to find a way to win because Groves has got the attributes to beat Froch. You know, he is too fast for Carl Froch. He does move too well. He does hit hard. So Carl had to find a way to win, but that's what he's done his whole career.
And I'm told at ringside, Eddie, that 2 judges had Froch narrowly in front. The other had Groves in front. When we went across to the corner, I think it was after the 6th, maybe after the 7th round, Robert McCracken did sound concerned. I mean, he'd want Carl Froch to up his game anyway, but he sounded concerned. What about you at ringside? How were you seeing it?
It's one of those where you score what you like. You know, Froch was forcing the fight, forcing the pressure. We knew really what Groves was going to try and do. He was going to try and outbox Froch here. And but if you liked that, I would say he was in front. If you liked a guy who was forcing the pressure, trying to make the other guy work, I would say Froch was in front. I think 1 round either way was fair. But, you know, seeing that knockout there, I mean, you know, George, he's such a brave kid. Look, he's absolutely gone, and he still tries to get up, and he was not in a good way in the corner, but he's a brave kid, you know, and he boxed well. He's a great fighter.
And because of the way it's finished, Eddie, it has to go down as one of Carl's great performances. And this is the hallmark of Carl Froch. When he was beaten by Kessler first time round, he beats Abraham next. One of his greatest performances. When he's beaten by Andre Ward, he then beats Boutte, one of his best performances. And he wasn't beaten last time, but it felt like it with all the boos as he left the ring and all the criticism afterwards and people saying it was a one-sided fight in favour of George Groves until the end. And yet he's produced again when he's been forced into producing.
But that's what I'm saying, Mike. You know, this guy deserves so much respect. And I know I harp on about it all the time, but look at his record. Look at where he's been. You know, if I would have got hold of this guy when he beat Jean Pascal, he would own Nottingham, not just live in Nottingham. He deserves it. And you know what? Yeah, he earned a lot of money tonight. He couldn't give a monkey's. Honestly. He never thought about the pound notes once throughout the whole camp, throughout the whole fight. And even now, because he's a fighting man and he loves to fight. But, you know, I'm so proud to see him get what he deserves. And George Groves will come again, by the way. But for Carl Froch at 36 years of age, to put in a performance like that, it was conclusive, no question marks. No, and that was the main thing to get tonight. And the way it was going to be one of those points decisions where it's going to go either way, and perhaps people won't be happy, but you can leave here knowing that the George Groves chapter for now is over.
Ed, in the build-up to the fight, and as the fight started, certainly in the first couple of rounds and the days before, the hours before, did you think there'd be an ending like that? Or did you think that Carl was going to put his foot down and come on and win on points?
I didn't feel there'd be a brutal knockout like that. I felt as though Carl would wear him down. And to be honest with you, it was the way the fight was going. You know, I felt confident, but the rounds were starting to run out. You know, we were getting late, and I wanted him to force it a little bit more, and I think that's what Rob was trying to do. But you know, Froch's power and punch power is underrated. He's more a relentless puncher rather than a knockout artist. But that was conclusive. And
Eddie, in the build-up though, was you concerned because you said to me that he was very, very nervous today? Your gut feeling going into it, was you nervous as Carl?
Oh yeah, I was so nervous because you know everything was on the line, and you know from a promotional point of view, I might have been able to sign George Groves before this fight was made, but when the fight was made, I just didn't feel like it was the right thing to do because I'm a huge Carl Froch fan. So, you know, I'm going into a fight all of a sudden with one fighter, and it's all on the line for me as a promoter as well. But that's what makes it exciting. Yeah. You know, I'm in the changing rooms, and my heart's beating, and I'm nervous, yeah, for our business, but I'm more nervous for Carl Froch because you just don't. He's 36 years old, Richie. He's been in so many tough fights, but that wasn't a tough fight for him. That's the great thing, you know.
And I'm just looking at Robert McCracken. That relationship between Carl and Robert, that is unbelievable. Yeah.
But you know, Rob, he's so calm. I mean, I hugged him, and I felt like I could have cried, and I just looked at him and he was ice cold. He said, I'd never put him in a fight. I didn't think he could win. That's all he said to me, you know. And Rob McCracken and Carl Froch have a special relationship. I remember Carl Froch said to me once, even when I'm hitting the bag, I'm hoping Rob says good or that's better. And I thought, for everything you've achieved, to have that respect for your coach is second to none. And listen, they're best mates as well, but I'm so happy for Rob because he doesn't get the credit he deserves. He's one of the top trainers in the world.
Eddie, let me ask you this. In a week's time, 5 days' time, 10 days' time, when Carl's body's okay and when he's watched the fight, if he called you up and you go out for a nice meal and he said, Ed, I think that's it. I've done it. I've got the money, I've got the home, I've got the family, I've got my marbles, I've got the legacy, and I've got the memories and the history. What would be your instant reaction, Ed? Instant reaction.
I honestly would have no problem with Carl Froch retiring at this point because this is a pinnacle for him. But the problem you've got is he's fresh, and that was a great performance. Yeah. And he's still got goals at 36. He still wants to go to Vegas. You know, you've got another young Brit now, great performance tonight, James DeGale. He's the mandatory. Mikhail Kessler over there, he wants number 3. Sakio Beaker, he's got the WBC belt. Julio Cesar Chavez, a dual pay-per-view in Las Vegas. I mean, this, you know, I can deliver those for Carl, and he deserves it. But in answer to your question, if he turned around to me now, you could never, ever, you know, but you know, I don't think it'll ever be Carl Froch making the decision to retire. It will be Rob McCracken. And when Rob says it's time, that's when it will be time. But from tonight, it's not time.
And talking business, to move on now, because it's been such a successful night for Carl Froch, Eddie, is it James DeGale next? If he doesn't, does he have to let go of the IBF title?
Listen, that might be the case. You know, we've seen the domestic fights, they sell, you know, and DeGale is now the mandatory, but Carl Froch has also got fights that he wants, and you know, it's my job as James DeGale's promoter as well to push for that world title shot, but it's not really the time now. It's not even something to consider because ultimately, you know, DeGale is the mandatory, but Froch has so many things he wants to do with his career still, and we'll find a way to appease everybody.
Thanks for the moment, Eddie. The calmest man among 80,000 here, as Eddie was just alluding to, Robert McCracken. First of all, your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm really pleased. He boxed to the plan. It was closing the distance with George Groves was always going to be very difficult because he's very quick. But we felt if he controlled the centre and pushed Groves back and cut across him, eventually he'd close the distance and the right hand would pay off.
Do you remember I came up to the gym, Rob, about 6 weeks or so ago, and Carl was in a foul mood, and I was saying to everybody, and you were saying it to me as well, he's just different to how he's ever been. He's realised what this means in so many ways.
Yeah, it was a huge fight for him in Britain, and you know, his legacy is really important to him. You know, if you actually look at his career and the people that he's beaten, he's a phenomenal British prize fighter, unbelievable really, and he showed that again tonight. He can solve puzzles in the ring, he can deal with extreme speed, Andre Durrell, Jermaine Taylor, and he can deal with real power, you know, Arthur Abraham, George Groves, Butte, etc. He's a tremendous fighter.
And that was one of the great punches we've seen in a British ring.
Yeah, it's a tremendous right hand over the top that he throws. He's very powerful. In fairness to Groves, it was very tricky to pin him down. He had a good game plan. He's very quick. He's dangerous himself with the right hand. He's a big puncher. I'm sure he'll have a tremendous future moving forward. But Carl's a phenomenal puncher and a power puncher as well. And if he catches you on the chin, you're going to go.
After 7 rounds, what was your sense? I think we went across to the corner and you said, look, you've got to win these remaining rounds. Now, you would say that as a trainer because you want to make absolutely sure. But what was the sense in the corner?
The sense was he was 2 or 3 up. He was giving away the odd jab and right hand. And off the feeling, ringside afterwards is that he was 2 or 3 up from pretty much everyone we spoke to.
I'm hearing from the judges, 2 had Carl in front, 1 had Groves in front at the time.
Yeah, I spoke to a few of them, the media outside the ring, and the vast majority had Carl 2 or 3 up, which was, in reflection was about fair. But Groves was very difficult, and the minute Carl switched off, he was getting caught with that. Well, I won't say bloody right hand, but I will, because Groves is very quick and dangerous, and that was a problem throughout the fight.
Now, Rob, you've had fights of him where he's lost, he's gone to the next fight, and he's just been a slightly different Carl. It's been a more determined Carl. But tonight, he definitely looked cleaner in the work he did. And there was a point in about the 6th round when he finally, for the first time, crossed his feet. One of the things that Carl's always done, sometimes to his benefit, because he throws a punch on that switch stance. And he seemed to back off, and you could see his mind going, I'm not going to do that again. Was that something you really worked on? Because obviously that was the first round knockout in the first fight.
Yeah, Richie Wood will tell you, he's been almost as involved in the camp as I have.
out, to be honest. You know, we've constantly drilled into him about his feet and his balance, and you know, he cuts corners and he beats the world's best. If he doesn't cut corners, what can he achieve at the age of 36? He knows how to win, he knows how to hook off the jab, he knows how to get an angle on you that you can't control, and that's why he was able to land the right hand on George.
He's got such respect for you, Rob. If you were to say to him, that's it, this is where to go out on this high, he would absolutely stand by what you say. But what's your sense of how long he's got left?
Yeah, I'm being totally honest. I want him to have a break. We'll have a chat, see what he wants to do. He lives like a monk. He's thoroughly dedicated to the sport and his well-being, and we'll see where he wants to go. But possibly, you know, he'll want to do a big one. He'll want to do a big one in Vegas. I know that was one of his ambitions, but we'll see. We'll have a chat and we'll be sensible whatever we do.
When you say a break, do you mean he won't fight again this year?
Oh no, a break. You know, I'll give him like a month off from
November.
Yeah, I'll give him a month off from listening to me and stuff or two. But we'll have a chat. He's a very sensible person. He's extremely wealthy. He has a great life and stuff. He just loves the sport and he's a gladiator. And he took the challenge on of George Groves in the first case. He took it on in the second case as well. And that's a testament to the fighter that he is.
Thanks for your time, Rob, and congratulations on your part in devising the win tonight.
Thank you.
Let's get the George Groves perspective from Adam Booth, who we spoke to before the fight. Thank you again for your time. Did George walk into a trap there?
Yeah, he was getting caught. Sorry, just one sec.
Yeah.
Well done, Rob.
Just congratulate Rob McCracken, quite right too. Good to see that. Yeah.
George was getting caught with shots that I don't remember him getting caught with in the past, and I had Carl 1 or 2 up. I mean, a lot of the rounds were so close, and when one would land a clean, dramatic shot, the other one would land a clean, dramatic shot. But the fact is that the first 6 rounds of this fight were much closer than the first 6 rounds of the last fight. And George was too square. He was jabbing from a square position with his shoulders. And Carl was using that left hook from the first round to keep him occupied on that side. And he just waited until he had him backed up to the ropes. In the 7th round, after a few trades, George had slowed down, and as Carl made the move, the most annoying thing from my perspective is that George opened his left arm out for a left hook, and this is something from day one that we talked about, and he hadn't corrected it. And in a fight like this with a puncher like that, you make a mistake like that, you're going to lose like that.
So just not smart enough from George Groves. Should have learned a lesson or two.
I'd like to watch it again on TV. I could see from the first round that Carl was swiping that left hook across, and he didn't care whether it was landing or not. He knew that it was keeping George occupied, and it was stopping him every now and again moving to the right, and that's what Carl wanted. He was very busy with his left hand. He controlled his distance much better today. George looked a little bit heavy on his legs sometimes. George swiped George across, and then when he sensed that the time was right, that's when he drove him with the right hand, and it's for my part, it was sad to see.
Yeah, Adam, I can tell how sickened you feel, and I agree with you. I said that he was using that sweeping left, and I was wondering after a round why he wasn't closing his glove, and it was because it wasn't meant to be a punch. He was just tapping him along, hitting him with it. And you're absolutely right. Now, it looked to me, and we started talking about it after 2 rounds, it looked to me that George and the people around him were so confident, overconfident, probably doesn't capture it. I've had lots of conversations with Paddy and with George in the last, say, 2 or 3 or 4 weeks, and they saw no way that this was, not that they could lose, that this was even a close fight. They had visions of Carl capitulating and walking away. Were you getting a sense of that? I know you're not around him anymore, but are you surprised and shocked by that amount of overconfidence?
Well, I haven't seen George since probably 3 days since the first fight. That was the last time we spoke. If what you're saying is true, then that's a naivety that deserves to lose. You cannot be naive against a guy like Carl Froch, and we know him from his amateur pedigree, from his professional background. Underestimate him at your peril, because he's a tough old man who's a lot smarter than his style and his rhythm shows. And tonight I noticed he was very clever with his distance, kept drifting out a distance, so George was overreaching and swiping the left hook across to get George concentrating on that side. He did a good job.
George, then 2 world title fights, 2 defeats. What happens now? He's 26. He's got time on his side. What does the timetable have to look like?
That genuinely had nothing to do with.
No, I know, but from your professional point of view,
I don't know. He's got to go back and lick his wounds for a while and actually look at what he did wrong to start with. But he's got to rebuild. But he's young enough, he's good enough, And if he still has the determination and the belief, then he can.
Adam, thank you very much indeed. Interesting what we're saying here, Richie. For all the talk about stamina or power, whatever, it sounds like you could boil it down to the fact that Carl Froch was just a lot smarter than George Groves this evening, well, for whatever reason.
Yeah, he boxed a clever fight, didn't he? Let's face it. And he's a little bit more seasoned. Obviously, I think George will come again. I've said before, he has the speed, power, and the movement, in my opinion, to be a world champion. That's the ingredients you need. So yeah, he will come again, but you got to remember, like Adam says, Carl Froch is a very smart boxer indeed. He's not just someone who gets stuck in the trenches and has a toe-to-toe scrap. Tonight he had to think a little bit. He had to keep his opponent on the outside, and Robert McCracken said it there, that it was very, very important that he pushed him back and he boxed from the centre of the ring, and that's what he did. So it was a thinking man's fight. You had people around who didn't recognise that, were booing sometimes because he wouldn't engage, but he knew that when he engaged, you see, that's when he brings his opponent into it, and that's when he's a little bit vulnerable. So he boxed a clever fight tonight.
It was interesting that Carl Froch said I could hear them booing, but I wasn't going to change what I was doing, and that's absolutely right.
That's experience, isn't it, as well, not to be frazzled by that.
That is experience, because the reverse of that happened, and I know I'm going on about this, the reverse of that happened with George in that first fight. How bizarre is it that you come through a first fight against a world champion of Carl Froch's caliber, and you fight like a veteran, and you get the rematch and you fight with a degree of naivety? That's a role reversal that not many people expected. Too many people bought into the Carl Froch is too slow, too old, and too predictable, and they forgot what has driven Carl from his first days, from his early days as an amateur, and they forget that heart and that desire and the fact he puts right the wrongs.
Do you know what I was saying? Sorry, Richie, just to say that one of the ways I was breaking down this fight, and let's be fair, we said beforehand a lot of people were flip-flopping, and the opinions were divided pretty much 50-50. One of the reasons I was coming down on Froch's side, I was saying in the build-up that I separated the first round of the first fight. Now, a lot of people said to me, well, that's ridiculous. That's like wiping out a goal from a football match. But I was looking at those remaining 7.5 rounds, and they were very closely contested by a man who was, to all intents and purposes, concussed. So George Groves was allowed the license to pretty much take pot shots on that occasion. If that didn't happen second time round, and if Froch landed, and he did once or twice early on, just to remind George Groves that he clubs a bit as well, then that was always going to turn it into a fascinating encounter. And look, it was building into a terrific fight, wasn't it? At halfway, as we've heard from people around here, Richie had it one way, Steve the other way, which reflects exactly how the three judges had it.
And I think, Mark, also tonight George learnt a little bit about being a little bit more patient, and experience told tonight, because Carl Froch wasn't doing what George wanted him to do. Carl Froch wasn't making mistakes, wasn't lunging forward, and George didn't really know how to cope with that, didn't know how to bring this fella out of his shell, and that just comes down to experience, whereas Carl Froch is so experienced, knew what he was doing, kept the blinkers on and kept focused and kept concentrated.
So when I said to you, would the 10-year age gap make a difference? Yes, it did. But in Froch's favour, not in the favour of the younger man.
Not in the way you meant it. What I'm sort of amazed at is that the people in George's corner, they also seem to be trapped in the headlights, and this is not an attack on Paddy Fitzpatrick, who I happen to really like as a human being, and I think he's a great motivator, and I think he's a decent coach, but they seem to also get trapped, because we saw here, you know, and I know what I'm talking about. Richie's a genius, and as is Mike. And we saw here, we saw what the plan was. We were picking the punches to see what was happening, and yet the guys in the corner didn't make him adjust, didn't make him fail to fall into traps, and that shocked me, if you must know, Poogers. It really shocked me.
Just two questions for James DeGale just before we go off air, because of course now he knows it's Carl Froch, so the IBF title is up there as the mandatory challenger. It was a heck of a punch, wasn't it?
Heck of a punch. I don't know how he got hit with it, because it come from a long way out, man. But listen, what a unbelievable night, an unbelievable finish by Carl Froch, man. You got to give the guy credit. You got to give him credit, man. He's beat a lot of good fighters, and he's won a lot of titles, man. So you got to give him credit, and I've got a lot of respect for the man.
So you're the #1 challenger for that IBF belt, then? Yeah. Bring it on, as far as you're concerned.
Listen, bring it on. Listen, I'm made for these kind of occasions and these kind of fights. So I've done my part of the deal. Now Eddie has to deliver and do his part of the deal.
We will see. James, thank you very much indeed. There we go there. That's what he wants. That's what we ought to reiterate, because there's a lot of belts. It confuses people, Mike, doesn't it? We're talking about just the IBF belt when it comes to James DeGale being the #1 challenger for Carl Froch.
But the governing body of international boxing, Mark, as you know, is the dollar, is the pound note. So if it makes business sense, it will happen. And Eddie Hearn will make it happen if Carl Froch wants it to happen. He has been talking about perhaps this Vegas, if not swan song, then to get it done before the end of his career. But what a night we've had here, Mark. On one of the great nights of British boxing history, we've seen one of the great punches ever thrown in a British ring by one of the greatest British boxers ever to lace on a pair of gloves.
Brilliant. Mike, we will leave it there. What a fabulous way to round it all up. Thank you very much, Steve. Thank you, Richie. Thank you. Thank you to you for listening.